Chapter 171, Face-to-Face Teaching of Profound Theories. What a good comrade! Feng Lin held on to the fatty's hand, swinging it with great force, afraid that he would regret his decision. He felt a lot of emotion in his heart. This fatty was a good comrade who would help others out at his own expense. Where else could Feng Lin find such a foolishly generous person? Seeing Feng Lin's excited expression, Fatty's expression became a little doubtful as he wondered if he had been tricked. Feng Lin reacted in time. He had lost his cool and appeared too anxious. It would be bad to be exposed. Seeing that Fatty didn't make a move after very long, he immediately wiped off his smile and frowned as he looked at Fatty. Dao friend Zhu Tiangang, what on earth are you thinking of? If you're unwilling, then let's just call this off. Feng Lin wore an impatient look and turned to leave. Don't. When Fatty saw this, he immediately panicked and grabbed onto Feng Lin. Dao friend Wukong, don't leave. We'll have the deal. Is that still not enough? If it's 1,000 star coins for every word, then so be it. We have a deal. This time around, it was Fatty's turn to fear that Feng Lin would regret his decision and thus said with great certainty. He cursed his own foolishness. So what if each word cost 1,000 star coins? The thing he had the least shortage of was star coins. If he could get his hands on the truth behind Dao ancestor Hongjuan's Dao propagation, what would this little bit of star coins matter? It was just the contents for the entry test. How many words could there be? How much could it possibly cost? Fatty tossed away all his doubts and didn't continue to think too much about it. He assumed a humble attitude and asked sincerely, what deep meaning is there to the song that Dao ancestor Hongjun sang? What is the entry test hidden within it? I implore Dao friend Wukong to dispel my doubts. Feng Lin nodded, satisfied with Fatty's attitude. He smiled and said, it's a long story. A long story? Fatty's brows twitched, but he still kept up the appearance that he was listening seriously. Feng Lin asked, do you know why Dao ancestor Hongjun wanted to establish the Mythological Genes Association? Fatty shook his head, wearing an ignorant expression. We'll need to start talking from the Mythological Genes Association. The Mythological Genes Association is a secret cultivating organization that disregards one's background and allows people to exchange knowledge about various mythological genes. However, Dao ancestor Hongjuan's cultivation was almighty, and the cultivating knowledge that other people exchanged were extremely superficial to him. He was unable to get any benefit from it. Have you thought about his objective for setting up the Mythological Genes Association? Feng Lin guided the conversation and kept on advocating his stand as Dao ancestor Hongjuan's clone, leading Fatty's thought into a trap. Why? Fatty was stunned for a moment as he silently cursed. How could ordinary people understand the thoughts of a remarkable existence like the Dao ancestor Hongjun? If I were to know, why would I need to ask you? This felt strange. Fatty was perplexed over how Dao friend Wukong knew so much about this. He must be an extremely senior and knowledgeable member in the Mythological Genes Association. That must be it. Unknowingly, his train of thoughts had run off course. Do you still not understand? Feng Lin smiled faintly. Dao ancestor Hongjun had told you about it earlier. He did? Fatty wore a dazed expression. Seeing that Fatty still didn't react, Feng Lin started to give face-to-face teaching about the profound theories. Laying high amidst the clouds, comprehending true Dao. The first line of this verse says that Dao ancestor Hongjun has an extremely deep and amazing mental state of tranquility, letting things take their own course, and that everything in the world starts from the heart. Assuming the role of a teacher beyond the universe. This second line talks about Dao ancestor Hongjuan's respectable status as a teacher. Pan Gu created Tai Chi, with the existence of two dualities and the extension of the four phases. This third line reveals the great Tao which he stands testimony to. The one path of Tao was passed down to three, and the three split into two branches. This fourth line says that he has once spread Tao to the world, and founded Buddhism and Taoism. Feng Lin broke down Tao ancestor Hongjuan's song of Tao verification into parts. Fatty was deeply absorbed by what Feng Lin said and was struck by a great sense of understanding. He felt that the mysterious face veil had been removed from the fog of mystery that had covered his eyes. Things became clear to him now. Buddhism. Fatty was suddenly taken by surprise, and he screamed out in his heart, "I heard of this before." It was said that the renowned Yang clan in the interstellar space had found the legacy by Erlang deity Yang Jian. In the myths and legends concerning the Erlang deity, there seem to have been mentions about Buddhism. It was a great supreme religious sect. Erlang deity was the first disciple of Buddhism's Jade Cauldron Immortal, who was one of the 12 Golden Immortals. However, it was unknown what other sacred existences were the 12 Golden Immortals. All of these were mysteries. Other than Buddhism, there was still Taoism? Could it be that this was a religious sect that stood on equal grounds with Buddhism? Both of them had passed down Tao ancestor Hongjuan's teachings. There was quite an amount of information, and it was too unbelievable. Fatty was in a bit of a daze. Feng Lin wore a mysterious smile and didn't give any further explanation. At a time like this, all he needed to do was to remain quiet and let the other party's imagination run wild. The more Fatty thought about things, the more mysterious Tao ancestor Hongjun would seem. The effect would be even greater than having him advocating fiercely. This was to prevent a situation where he became too anxious and exaggerated too much to the extent that even he couldn't believe it himself. Feng Lin was experienced in playing the role of a conman. All three were disciples of Hongjun, leading all in the path of Tao. Fatty's mind was all jumbled up and he murmured, asking, "What is the meaning behind this last line?" "It's saying that Tao ancestor Hongjun is the founder of the path of Tao, standing testimony to the origin great firmament golden immortal's fruit of labor." Feng Lin explained and then threw out another cultivation term that confounded Fatty. Origin great firmament golden immortal? What kind of deity was this? Although he didn't understand, it sounded as if this character was so amazing that he would shoot through the interstellar space. Feng Lin wore a faint smile and asked, "What is the most important thing that Tao ancestor Hongjun should do as the founder of Taoism?" Fatty wasn't stupid. On the contrary, he had extraordinary intelligence, and this was well known within his clan. Otherwise, as trash in cultivation, even if he were from the direct line of descent in the clan, he wouldn't be able to have his own life planet and become a star magnate. He had earned all these with his own capabilities. If he wasn't intelligent, he wouldn't have acted so shamelessly earlier, wanting to probe out secrets from Feng Lin's mouth. Only Feng Lin's profound trickeries were to blame that he had been taken for a ride. That's right. As the founder of the path of Tao, what should he do? Fatty went into deep in thought and suddenly thought of what Tao ancestor Hongjun had said to him earlier. Fatty's eyes gleamed. Could it be Tao propagation? That's right. Feng Lin wore a smile as if he thought highly of Fatty and praised him. As the founder of Tao, he naturally had to propagate Tao to the world. Otherwise, how can he call himself the founder of Tao? Why would he be answering all sorts of questions in the mythological forum previously, wanting to become a great V in myths and legends? It's all to propagate his path of Tao. Tao ancestor Hongjun has gone into seclusion for very long, and the world has long forgotten about his great achievements. Even though he is the founder of the path of Tao, he can only rise afresh. Feng Lin continued to fabricate stories as hard as he possibly could. Fatty nodded, bearing no suspicion at all. He came up with a guess in his heart. In his opinion, The real identity of the Mythological Genes Association's founder, Tao ancestor Hongjun, must be a remarkable senior with an extremely high cultivation level. Taking on Tao ancestor Hongjun's cultivation path was to follow his path of Tao, to spread Tao to the world, and from there to stand testimony to Hongjun's Tao. Unknowingly, his train of thought had been brought off track to beyond the 9 heavens. Fatty's eyes opened wide as if he had understood something. This means that the mission in my trial is related to Tao ancestor Hongjun's Tao propagation. Promising and worth teaching. Feng Lin smiled. Tao ancestor Hongjun is the Mythological Genes Association's founder. And to become a member of the association, one must also accept Tao ancestor Hongjun's path. The Mythological Genes Association has just started and there's only the 2 of us right in it at the moment. This is a great opportunity. This is a heaven-blessed opportunity for the 2 of us. As long as we can bring the Tao ancestors' profound theories to greater heights and to a flourishing state, which spread across the entire interstellar space, the Tao ancestor will naturally favor us and will have great prospects for our future. Do you think that there will be any problems for you to join the Mythological Genes Association then? You must keep this a secret. I don't share this with just anyone. Fatty's eyes opened wide and he covered his mouth, nodding quickly. Boom boom boom. Feng Lin wanted to say more when the cloud above Mythology Planet suddenly seethed, forming an enormous hand that covered up the skies and sun. It was grabbing from afar. Wukong, you've revealed the heaven secrets. How should you be punished? Tao ancestor Hongjun's enraged voice rang out from beyond the heavens and even the world tremored. Feng Lin wore a shocked expression and quickly said, Tao ancestor, please have mercy. Wukong won't dare to do this again in the future. He couldn't escape in time, and his body was grabbed and pulled into Mythology Planet, disappearing from sight. Tao ancestor Hongjun, please spare my life. An extremely agonizing cry rang out. Fatty was swept by the enormous hand, and he became like a shooting star, flying an extremely far distance before gradually coming to a stop. He shivered and then he woke up from the shock as if someone had poured water down from over his head. Fatty looked at the Mythology Planet, which had once again sunk into the void. His entire body felt cold, and he held no doubts to what Feng Lin had said. Tao friend Wukong had revealed the heaven's secrets and was caught by Tao ancestor Hongjun. How could he possibly be lying? Tao friend Wukong was definitely in hot soup. There was nothing he could do to help Tao friend Wukong. Tao friend Wukong, I'm sorry for causing you to reveal heaven's secrets. If we meet again in the future, I'll definitely offer you my great appreciation. Fatty could only secretly mourn for Feng Lin. Tao friend Wukong, you can only help yourself and hope for the best. In order to express his appreciation and apologies, he transferred 3 million star coins to Feng Lin's account. It far exceeded the agreed price of 1,000 star coins per word. I finally got to know what the entry test is about. Fatty became extremely excited and quickly logged off as if he was in a hurry to complete the entry test. He walked very quickly and didn't notice that not long later, the Mythology Planet's Purple Cloud Palace had once again revealed its traces. Feng Lin and Tao ancestor Hongjun's clone exchanged a glance and smiled. He had put up a good performance. He first used Tao ancestor Hongjun's clone to spread Tao, coming up with extravagant and baseless talk to raise Fatty's great curiosity, and then personally appeared to reveal the secret to earn money. Feng Lin himself had played the role of both the good and the bad guy. With that, he managed to get his hands on 3 million star coins. He had really managed to con Fatty with nothing in his hands. He didn't lose out at all in this deal. In that palace on an asteroid in the depths of the universe, a series of loud and bright shouts rang out rapidly. Quick! Go spread Tao ancestor Hongjun's story across the interstellar space. I have no lack of money. I want Tao ancestor Hongjun to become a hit. A hit. A hit. A hit. The hysterical shouts seethed across the asteroid and continued ringing out for a while. After a while, Fenglin got offline from the virtual universe, and the moment he logged onto the Mythological forum, he discovered that the number of fans who were following him had increased tremendously and was about to shoot through the cloud layers like they were on a rocket. 1, 10, 100. 1, 10, 100. Very soon, the numbers of his followers had broken through 1 million. Moreover, it was still rising rapidly at an extraordinary speed. There were these words to conclude this. A hit. A hit. A hit. Chapter 172, A hit. A hit. A hit. A hit. A hit. A hit. The asteroid revolved around the huge life planet's orbit, and the interior had been emptied to build an extravagant and luxurious palace. Fatty got up from his specially ordered extra-large cabin. His voice was loud and kept on ringing on for a while. An old butler who seemed to be solemn and old-fashioned led a group of beautiful maids and walked over in surprise. "Young master, what happened?" Fatty's gaze assessed the surroundings, and an unprecedented sense of confidence and pride rose within him. "I've received guidance from a remarkable existence in the interstellar space and have become an interstellar cultivator. Right now, this senior wishes to spread Tao across the interstellar space. As he has been in seclusion from the world for a very long time, he can only start from scratch by answering all sorts of questions in the Mythological forum to garner popularity. This is a great disservice to Senior's respectable identity. In order to express my thanks, I'm going to make him a hit and let even more people see the unrivaled Tao that he propagates." His tone was agitated as if he had taken stimulants. The old butler seemed astonished to see how exaggerated Fatty was making things out to be. Although he knew that this young master had always been treated as trash in the clan due to his lack of aptitude in cultivation, he was very smart. Despite his young age, he had used his brains to earn himself a massive amount of money and even a life planet. Now that he had become an interstellar cultivator, his prospects in the clan would definitely be very bright. If he were to continue to progress like this, he would have a very great chance to become the #1 successor of the clan leader. Which remarkable cultivator was it to be able to transform something useless into something amazing? Quick! Open up the Mythological forum, Fatty urged. Usually, he would be too lazy to move his fat body, but now, he darted over with a speed that was quick as lightning, shocking the old butler. He opened up the Mythological forum, followed the account Hongjun and read the feed. When the old butler came over to have a look, he was also shocked. The account Hongjun had only been registered for 3 days, but the number of replies had already exceeded 1,000. Moreover, almost all of the replies were correct, and there were many appreciative comments left behind by others. "Thank you very much. I've decided to choose a gene evolution path that is compatible with wind and thunder. Thank you for your guidance, Master. This answer is perfect. I'm very satisfied. I've transferred the star coins over. Add me as a friend, please. Master has resolved a problem that I've had for a very long time. Thanks. This question is correct. This question is correct as well. They are all correct. How is that possible?" The old butler and everyone else saw the questions that Hongjun had answered, and they were all very astonished. The number of questions answered was beyond one's imagination, and the accuracy level was exceptionally high. After scanning through them, they had not spotted any mistakes. This was far too unbelievable. The Mythological forum was the greatest exchange platform in the interstellar space. The question and answer section that required payment was very professional. It involved all kinds of cultivation characteristics and wasn't something that could be answered by ordinary people, let alone the fact that someone had managed to answer so many questions within a mere 3 days. However, Fatty wore a matter-of-fact expression. As expected of the founder of the Mythological Genes Association, Tao ancestor Hongjun. What a boss! What a boss! Quick, from now onward, publish Master Hongjun's ID as well as the questions and answers he had replied. Keep advertising them. I want everyone in the interstellar space to see Tao ancestor Hongjun's amazing Tao. Fatty raised his voice and said, "Isn't the price too huge to be putting in so much money on advertisements?" The old butler hesitated. "What's there to be afraid of? I have no lack of money," Fatty said willfully. "Master Hongjun has made me into an interstellar cultivator. I'm going to let him become a hit across the entire interstellar space." This price wasn't considered much to him. Fatty had his mind on the paragon god's mythological path that Tao ancestor Hongjun had. Of course, this was something that he wasn't going to share with other people. Oh, right. Even at a time like this, he hadn't forgotten about himself. I want an advertisement as well. I want to let everyone know that I, Zhu Tiangang, have become an interstellar cultivator. I want to let those people who have ridiculed me as trash to open up their contemptuous eyes and have a good look. Fatty grew up in the wealthiest clan in Huaxia Star Republic, the Zhu clan. He had never been a low-profile person. It was just that he previously didn't have any cultivation aptitude, and thus couldn't say anything. Therefore, he held it in. Now that he had turned the tables, becoming an interstellar cultivator in a day, there was no way that he was going to be low profile. Was he someone who wouldn't retaliate after being put at a disadvantage? 10 years wasn't too late for a gentleman to seek revenge. But a vile character would spend the entire day seeking revenge. Fatty gritted his teeth, wanting to release all of the vengeful feelings in his heart. As he spent a huge amount of star coins, endless advertisements flew out across the entire interstellar space like snowflakes. There are no useless genes, but only useless people. You've only seen my wealth, but not my effort. You have your rules, I have my choice. You've denied my present, but I'll decide on my future. You ridiculed that I'm fat as a pig and isn't deserving of cultivation. I pity your short-sightedness. You can look down on our talent, but we'll prove it to you whose generation this belongs to. Dreams are destined to be lonely journeys, with no lack of doubts and ridicules from others. But so what if that's the case? Even if we were to suffer from injuries all over, we'll still live a great life. Becoming an interstellar cultivator in one day. I am Zhu Tiangang. I speak on behalf of Trash. Do you want to find out the secrets behind myths and legends? Do you want to understand the meaning of life? Do you want to really live? Mythological Forum, Hongjun propagates Tao. It was a hit. Feng Lin had just gotten offline and opened up the Mythological Forum. There was only one thought on his mind. An eye-popping number was presented before his eyes. Followers, 1,583,723. There were a total of 1.58 million followers, and this was simply beyond his expectations. He had no idea where they had suddenly popped out from. He had become a hit. Feng Lin wanted to make the ID Feng Lin into a great V of myths and legends. He hadn't expected things to progress so quickly that it was simply unbelievable. If he had to slowly increase the number of followers by himself, how long would he have to take before he had over 1 million followers? He hadn't expected Fatty's means to be so amazing. Regardless if it was Fatty's identity or his abilities, they had all surpassed Feng Lin's expectations. Feng Lin thought that he had already viewed Fatty's status in high regard, but it turned out that he had still underestimated him. Right now, private messages kept popping up. Are you that Tao ancestor Hong Jun who has given interstellar internet celebrity Zhu Tiangang guidance? Can you give me some guidance as well? Many thanks. Are you really a great cultivator? Liar. How can a piece of trash become a genius? How is it possible to become an interstellar cultivator within a day? There were all sorts of things in these private messages, including doubt, admiration, slander. Feng Lin remained undisturbed by the favor and disgrace received, not caring about them at all. He only paid attention to one thing. Interstellar internet celebrity, Zhu Tiangang? He started searching online and quickly got results. When he saw Zhu Tiangang saying that line, "I am Zhu Tiangang, I speak on behalf of trash," seriously, he couldn't hold back and broke out laughing. People in the city really knows how to have fun. This Zhu Tiangang was really not a low-profile person. Feng Lin also saw the advertisements that Zhu Tiangang had put up everywhere. Do you want to find out the secrets behind myths and legends? Do you want to understand the meaning of life? Do you want to really live? Mythological forum, Hong Jun propagates Tao. It was no wonder the number of his followers had soared so quickly. This advertisement was really crazy. It was like great publicity on the front page of the entire interstellar space. As expected, in order to become a great V of myths and legends, the best way would still be to create sensations. The number of followers continued to surge. There were more and more comments as well as many requests for guidance. Boss, can you give me some guidance for my cultivation? I've read all the questions that you've answered previously. Those were great answers. Master, I'm a gene cultivator. I'm not sure how I should carry on from now on. Can you help me to derive a genetic formula? Since even the obese gene can evolve into the primeval gene, then you should also be able to do the same for my woodified gene. Senior, I'm a cute girl. I can warm your bed and fold your blankets. As long as you can help me with my cultivation, I can do anything. Everything was a mess and there were all sorts of comments. Feng Lin blocked these harassment accounts one by one, but there was still no end to them. Beep beep beep. Sharp piercing sounds kept on ringing, and another huge pile of private messages popped up. They came popping up constantly, and no matter how many of them Feng Lin deleted, he still couldn't finish deleting them. Feng Lin noticed that the rate of increment of his followers was growing faster and faster. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, 10 million, 100 million. Very soon, the number of followers had hit the first small target of 100 million, and it continued to rise rapidly. There were still only the same words to describe this. A hit. A hit. A hit. Chapter 173, Hall of Gods. Very soon, a day passed. No matter how calm Feng Lin was, he couldn't remain unperturbed when he saw the number of his fans. He was so shocked that he fell into a daze. He was a hit on the forum. However, he was simply too overwhelming popular to the extent where his heart couldn't take it anymore. His fans had actually reached over 10.8 billion people. Right now, he could already claim that he was a billion-ranked mythology great V. The population of interstellar humans was trillions in number. Once something was a hit, the number of fans streaming in would be countless. It wasn't something an internet celebrity in the ancient Earth era could compare to. In any case, a billion-ranked great V in the interstellar space couldn't be considered anything. At most, he could only be considered a mid-grade great V. There were even trillion-ranked great versus in the forum, but having this achievement as a billion-level great V was already considered very excellent. How fearsome were 10 billion followers. There weren't even so many humans back on the ancient Earth era. Just 1% of them sending him a private message would already cause him a splitting headache. He seemed to have underestimated Fatty's strength. Right now, he was simply on fire. In any case, being popular was also a kind of happy trouble. More and more private messages were sent to his inbox. Feng Lin clicked into the settings and changed it to one that wouldn't automatically accept private messages. Only then did the situation calm down. Ding, ding, ding. Just when he was about to shut off his ID microchip and start his cultivation, a notification rang out once more. Feng Lin felt strange. He clearly changed the settings to block strangers from sending him private messages. Why was there someone who could find him? Feng Lin transformed into Hongjuan's appearance and opened up his microchip. A projection manifested, showing a young man from the white race. This young man had a face filled with arrogance that he even disdained to mask his real features. "Are you Hongjun?" The white race young man surveyed Feng Lin imperiously, like a higher life form judging a lower one. Feng Lin felt unhappiness in his heart when he saw that. Not bad, you can even find an evolutionary path for the obese gene. I'm very satisfied with your abilities. I, Eurynomus, am giving you a chance to join my Hall of Gods as a follower god. My time is very precious, quickly send me your information. If you delay, don't even think of having this opportunity anymore. The young man from the white race, Eurynomus, clearly was extremely impatient. Feng Lin glanced over and it was like he was looking at a retard. Who the fuck are you? Brains are good stuff, but do you have them? Hall of Gods? Feng Lin noticed the word he used. He suddenly thought of a mythological system that had originated from the West in the ancient Earth era. The Hall of Gods was a pantheon. It was a place where gods discussed matters. For any gods, once they ignited their divine flames and was elevated onto a divine throne, they would become true gods and leave their names in the Hall of Gods. At that time, they could create a clone of them at any time to enter the Hall of Gods to interact with the other gods. Upon hearing this name, it seemed that this organization should be an extremely immense secret power in interstellar space. Maybe after they learned about how popular he was recently, they decided to recruit him? What made Feng Lin uncomfortable was that this Eurynomus spoke as though he was someone of a higher position and he was bestowing an extremely valuable opportunity to Feng Lin. How did you manage to find me? His voice turned heavy as he questioned this uninvited guest. Very simple, through the Star Web's IP tracking. Hongjun, I admire your talent as a geneticist. Our Hall of Gods has many mythological genes research associations under us, and we are proficient in manufacturing various genetic equipment and genetic potions. There's only a very limited headcount for recruitment, and this is a godsent opportunity. As a god-level member in the Hall of Gods, I have the authority to recruit others. Now, I'm benevolently granting you a slot. You better know what is good for you. Upon seeing that Feng Lin had no reactions to his recruitment, this Eurynomus expression sank as his tone was filled with warning vibe. Feng Lin suddenly laughed. His tone was filled with nothing but mockery. Pantheon? Since there were gods, there would naturally be a sovereign god. Do you want me to become your sovereign god? I mentioned the name Hongjun. This is a heavenly Tao sage of Huaxia mythology, the Tao ancestor of everything. You want me to join your pantheon? Can you bear the weight of this? What audacious words! Feng Lin decisively rejected. A mischievous thought suddenly appeared in his mind. I want to see what tricks you can pull exactly. He appeared to be extremely joyful. Such a good thing actually happened to me? If I become a follower god, what missions do I need to fulfill? Eurynomus seemed very satisfied with Feng Lin's reply. He laughed, as your sovereign god, I can guide you on genetic knowledge of all aspects, but you have to put in all your efforts to support me. All income you earn from genetic knowledge will be split 40 to 60, with 60% going to me. Isn't this treatment very good? Only by paying 60% of your income, you would be able to join the Hall of Gods and gain valuable genetic knowledge. Where can you find such a good deal? He had a look on his face that was directly expressed this, hurry up and thank me on bended knees. Thank your bloody head. Feng Lin's smile turned to ice, he no longer fooled around. The attitude of this person was extremely disrespectful, thus, there was naturally no need for him to be courteous. He directly mocked, brains are good stuff, I hope you have some. What did you say? Say it again. Euronymous had a look of shock on his face, as though he suspected that he had heard things wrongly. Feng Lin laughed. He had never heard of such a ridiculous request like this. He naturally obliged. This time, he enunciated each word slowly and clearly as though he was afraid that Euronymous wouldn't be able to hear it properly. Brains are good stuff. I hope you have some. Euronymous finally heard it. His face turned extremely gloomy and sinister. If looks could kill, Feng Lin would have been torn into pieces by a million cuts. Feng Lin didn't mind it and directly replied, genetic knowledge, do I need you to teach me? You even want 60% of my income? Are you still living in the primitive era? Feng Lin's words contained no vulgarities, yet Euronymous was completely stunned. He only recovered after some time. Right now, his entire face was red from anger. It was like this was the first time he had suffered such insults. Feng Lin silently blamed himself. Were his words too ruthless? Euronymous now looked like a pitiful child that was bullied and was about to run off crying to look for his mother. You are dead for sure. Do you really think you are a major character just because you have some minor accomplishments as a billion-ranked Great V? You actually dared to reject the recruitment of my Hall of Gods. Euronymous, will definitely make you feel endless regret. The white race man Euronymous was so angered that he felt like he was about to explode. Pa. Feng Lin didn't wait for him to finish speaking and directly off his ID microchip. He also didn't know where did that fellow get his sense of superiority from. He was simply a crazy guy. As expected of how vast interstellar space was, there were all sorts of creatures, even idiots who were impervious to reason. Feng Lin felt that he had to learn to get used to it. Just as he was preparing to cultivate, his ID microchip lit up again with a glaring red light. The frequency of the light pulse was extremely rapid, like it was signaling him that there was a very urgent situation. A message automatically sprang out from his ID microchip. Attention! 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 The ID chip's protective wall has encountered a virus attack. Suspected to be the work of an interstellar hacker. Chapter 174, Hacker Attack. Hacker attack? Upon listening to this notification, Feng Lin felt somewhat startled. Why would an interstellar hacker suddenly attack him? The first thing he thought of was that the mastermind behind this act must be Euronymous of the Hall of Gods. It seemed like he wasn't just all talk and had extraordinary methods at his disposal. He actually could hire an interstellar hacker to trace his IP and launch a virus attack at him. But no matter what origins Euronymous had or what methods he had at his disposal, all of this was not important now. That interstellar hacker was giving his all, frenziedly attacking Feng Lin's ID microchip. The defensive firewalls collapsed one after another while ringing out loud unceasingly with a warning. Things were getting dangerous. If the protection of his ID microchip was broken through, it wasn't as simple as a technological product being destroyed. All the information recorded in the microchip would be leaked. This would definitely be fatal. At that time, Feng Lin would have no secrets. The name Dao ancestor Hong Jun of the mythology form would be exposed as a fake. he wouldn't be able to pretend anymore. Just this point alone would ensure that he would have a pitiful ending once his identity was exposed to countless internet users. Upon facing this hacker's attack, Feng Lin wasn't proficient in internet technology and didn't really have any idea. The hacker used a virus attack, thus, the source of this should have been through the internet. If he used physical means, no matter how high the hacker's skills were, the virus couldn't traverse across the boundless distance in interstellar space to attack his ID microchip. However, this wasn't all. For all he knew, the hacker could have inserted some program inside his ID microchip once he had broken past the defensive walls. And once Feng Lin connected to the web in the future, his IP address would instantly be locked on and the virus attacks would continue without end. Unless Feng Lin didn't go online forever, he would always have to be worried about this. In that case, there was only one solution left: reformat. He had to reformat his ID microchip and reset it to the factory's default. If that was the case, all procedures and records would be completely wiped clean, and the ID microchip would only contain the most basic information about Feng Lin. Everything else would be completely gone. Although he could sever all future sources of trouble by doing this, all the images and information he had recorded before would be wiped clean. However, Feng Lin gritted his teeth and decided to go ahead with it, like how a lizard would decide to break its tail to survive. There was only the saying being a thief for 1,000 days. Where was the logic in guarding against thieves for 1,000 days? If the hacker managed to gain access to his ID microchip, all his secrets would be exposed. Hence, he could only choose to give up on all his previous recordings by reformatting it. Hall of Gods? If one day, he found where this organization was hiding. Feng Lin's gaze grew deep and terrifying. He no longer hesitated and pressed the reformat option, allowing it to be automatically reset to the factory's default. A message appeared on the microchip, ready to process the reformat and returning to the factory's default. To ensure that this order is confirmed, please verify this order 3 times. Are you sure you want to reformat the microchip? Confirm. 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 Once he made the decision, Feng Lin naturally wouldn't look back. Command accepted, currently reformatting. A line of information appeared. There was a bar and currently only 1% was filled. The percentage increasingly grew higher. Once it reached 100%, the ID microchip would be completely reformatted. It would roughly take about an hour. Feng Lin made his decision. In the future, he temporarily would not use the Mythology forum. The existence of his genetic equation ability was simply too incredible. He had only solved the problem of a fatty being unable to cultivate as well as answering various questions, but it actually led to people spying on him. New knowledge about cultivation appeared in his mind. How shocking was this? This development was not something he had ever imagined. Now, he was already a billion-ranked Great V. Although he was popular, he got too popular within a short time frame, and this actually created trouble for him. Although Feng Lin was already an interstellar cultivator, his strength was ultimately still too weak. The interstellar space was simply too vast with countless experts. His bit of strength counted for nothing. Before those supreme experts who could dominate the world, his strength was no different from an ant. Right now, Feng Lin basically couldn't protect the secret, which was the Mythological Genes Association. Behind the association, it involved vast amounts of mythological knowledge as well as his genetic equation ability. Once it was revealed, he might even be kidnapped and forced to work as a slave. It seemed like he would never be able to use the ID Hongjun again if he wished to access the Mythology forum. If he encountered another hacker attack, he might not be so lucky. Fall into the moat, and you will be wiser next time. This incident of the Hall of Gods hackers attack caused Feng Lin to learn a lesson. The interstellar space was too vast, and many currents were stirring in the dark. Without having enough strength, he didn't have any opportunity to stand out. Just the slightest lapse in attention might cause him to die without a whole corpse. With the genetic equation ability, he would have a chance to establish the mythological gene association any time. In the future, it was only a matter of time before he grew stronger. Why was there a need to be hasty? The weaker he was, the more he had to control himself. His priority should be self-protection first and wait for opportunities to grow stronger. Very swiftly, the ID microchip was completely reformatted. Staring at the ID microchip, which was now as blank as a piece of paper, Feng Lin's gaze was cold as he felt hatred for the Hall of Gods. He would endure now because he was weak. But in the future, things would be different. Feng Lin no longer used his microchip to access the Hongjun account. He just sent a message to Fatty and said he would be waiting for him in the virtual universe. After that, he cultivated for a day and his genetic potential surged up, reaching 518%. On the second day after he woke up, Feng Lin entered the virtual cabin and connected his consciousness to the virtual universe. Feng Lin transformed into the image of Tao ancestor Hong Jun and sat down on a praying mat in the Purple Cloud's palace. Looking at the interface, it was apparent that Fatty was online long ago and had already waited for many hours. Feng Lin sent over a strand of grand mist white qi and Fatty immediately rushed over. He had a face filled with excitement. Tao ancestor, how is it? My performance was not too bad, right? Has the entry test concluded? Not bad indeed, but you were completely tricked by me. Feng Lin had unspoken criticism in his heart, but his expression remained calm. He knew that although this Fatty had done too much, it originated from his good intentions. This hacker attack couldn't be blamed on him. After becoming popular, Feng Lin was like a giant tree that attracted wind. This was why he attracted the attention of the Hall of Gods. He slowly spoke and gave recognition to Fatty's hard work. Not bad. Zhu Tiangang, you promoted my Tao, and you already have the qualifications to join the Mythological Genes Association. With a wave of his hand, a strand of grand mist purple qi appeared in Fatty's hand. This item is a token that can allow you to enter and leave the Mythological Gene Association. A strand of grand mist purple qi. With this, you are already a member of my Mythological Genes Association. Many thanks, Tao ancestor. Fatty was surprised and hurriedly kept the strand of grand mist purple qi. Indeed, his huge spending was not wasted. The advertisement appeared everywhere through interstellar space. In that case, Tao ancestor, can you let me know the evolutionary genetic formula for the pig demon gene and Zhu Ganglai gene now? He excitedly asked. Yes and no. Feng Lin calmly spoke. What do you mean? Fatty was confused. Was it a yes or a no? I can give you the evolutionary genetic formula for the pig demon gene. This is a reward for you promoting my Tao. But as for the evolutionary path of the Zhu Ganglai gene, your contribution is still insufficient. You have to continue to work hard. Feng Lin smiled. I can give up everything. Fatty was anxious now, wanting nothing more than to hear the condition for obtaining the complete mythology path of Pigsy. Feng Lin merely shook his head and smiled, not answering. The time is not right yet, there's no point in persisting. With a wave of his hand, he transmitted the information about the pig demon gene to Fatty. After that, he didn't say anything and directly sent Fatty out from the Mythological Genes Association. Tao ancestor, don't do this, Fatty called out, but his figure already vanished within the clouds. Feng Lin was willing to gift the evolutionary formula for the pig demon path to Fatty because he had already considered things. Firstly, he could nurture Fatty's loyalty to the association. Secondly, This fatty allowed him to become a billion-level Great V almost overnight. He must have surely spent a huge amount of wealth, and the amount definitely would have covered the price for the pig demon gene's evolutionary formula. Chapter 175, Gene Lock. Feng Lin sat cross-legged as his chest heaved. His muscles rose up and down along with the rhythm of his breath, like an undulating wave. Currents of warmth circulated through his 8 extraordinary meridians and felt like hot lava. At the next moment, the feeling was like a volcano on the verge of an eruption. Genetic potential plus 36%, plus 36%, plus 36%. After 3 days of assiduous cultivation, as he continually consumed perfect-grade potions of life, his genetic potential surged up to 1,268%. However, Feng Lin was also clear that this feeling of happiness due to the rapidly surging genetic potential was almost at an end. These perfect-grade potions of life were obtained from the flower-fruit mountain-flying shuttle, something left behind by the giant pharmaceutical company. However, they had almost been fully consumed by him. Therefore, it was going to be extremely difficult if he wished to advance at the same speed. However, that was a future issue. For now, there was no need for him to be anxious. Once again, Feng Lin obtained a free primeval genetic point. Now, for mental gene, spirituality gene, and psychokinesis gene, all of them were strengthened to the max and had achieved the conditions for the evolvement of spirit gene. He only needed one final step before he would succeed. The spirit gene was a high-grade primeval gene, only 1 grade lower compared to the stone monkey gene. After the gene was awakened, its abilities would be extremely bizarre, combining mental hypnosis, Psi-Force control, and spirituality perception all together, fusing them as one. There was no form to it and could be launched from a distance. It would allow the user to possess many unimaginable methods that others would find it extremely difficult to defend against. The interstellar college exam was arriving soon, and any increase in strength was exceptionally important. If Feng Lin could control a second primeval gene, then he would be able to greatly enhance his strength. Also, the spirit gene was a long-distance control type ability. It could completely support the stone monkey gene that specialized in close combat. In this case, in the future, Feng Lin could excel in both close combat and long-distance combat, and would have no flaws at all. 1 + 1 equaled more than 2. The abilities of the spirit gene would definitely synergize very well with his stone monkey gene, allowing his strength to be enhanced greatly. Hence, Feng Lin was filled with anticipation with regards to evolving the spirit gene. His vitality stats had broken past 90 and he could already be considered a peak-level interstellar cultivator, reaching the major completion stage. However, he wasn't satisfied with this. Because, he was very clear that the interstellar college exam spanned across the entire universe. The geniuses among humanity in the entire universe would gather together to take the same exam. How grand of an occasion would that be? The experts would be as common as clouds, simply unimaginable. There would always be someone stronger, and there would always be a taller mountain. You would never know how strong your opponents were until you came face to face with them. An inconsequential interstellar cultivator basically couldn't be considered anything. Only elite cultivators and above had sufficient advantage. Hence, now Feng Lin had maxed out his stone monkey gene, but he had not awakened the spirit gene yet. Although his vitality stats was considered high now, he was only halfway there on the path of becoming an elite cultivator. Awakening the spirit gene was imminent. Once he successfully awakened the spirit gene, he would immediately add a primeval genetic point and strengthen it, increasing his spirit force. Everything was prepared, and only the final step was left. With his prior experience of awakening the stone monkey gene, Feng Lin already knew what to expect. His mind slowly sank into his inner world as the human genetic map appeared clearly before his eyes. 3 large golden stars were shining resplendently. These were none other than the maxed-out psychokinesis, mental, and spirituality gene, the 3 genes that made up the system for the spirit gene. Feng Lin used his will to control the 3 genes, enabling them to fuse. The 3 stars sparkled brightly, and a wave of astral light that was like the clear spring water was flowing out from each of the golden stars as they gathered together. These 3 completely different types of energy were like 3 streams merging into a great river. They continued to expand the river as they extended forward toward the depths of the starry ocean. The flow of the river wasn't sluggish. It continued with no delay and finally reached the endpoint. A dark star could be seen in the distance, no hints of fluctuation could be felt from it. But when the energy of the star river flowed into it, thumping sounds of a heart could be heard as though that dark star was slowly awakening. The star river was like a powerful current, filling up the dark star with boundless energy, wanting to awaken it completely. Bubble the starry space trembled. Feng Lin only managed to see a barrier of astral light manifesting and blocking the star river. It refused to allow the energy within it to continue flowing into the dark star. Feng Lin was shocked. He could feel that the dark star was locked by a formless energy. No matter how he urged his genetic energy to barge through it, it was useless. The dark star continued flickering, sometimes bright and sometimes dark. It seemed to be on the verge of awakening, yet it was locked by the formless force. It had no way to awaken completely. Is this a gene lock? Feng Lin thought of an extremely important detail in mythological knowledge. The mythological genes were passed down from ancient times and had always remained in the bodies of humans, never disappearing completely. But why were humans of the ancient Earth era unable to awaken it to control transcendent forces? The reason was because of genetic locks. The genetic locks restricted the potential of humans' body, as well as the boundless possibilities. It lasted until humanity left the solar system and found the existence of spirit particles. Through cultivation, they could absorb the spirit particles to temper and refine their bodies, slowly breaking through the gene locks and embarked on a path leading to transcendence. Every time one awakened a high-grade gene or stronger, not only must one match the strengthening tally of the previous genes according to the correct genetic formula, but they also needed to depend on their talent and stimulation from external conditions before they could synthesize and evolve lower-tier genes, fusing them into one and breaking through the limitations of gene locks. But why hadn't he encountered a gene lock as he awakened his stone monkey gene? Feng Lin felt that this was strange. When he awakened the stone monkey gene, everything felt as natural as water flowing into a canal. He didn't encounter any bottlenecks. This caused him to think that evolving genes would rarely need to depend on external conditions. It seemed like this theory wasn't on point. A gene lock was definitely the issue. Feng Lin meticulously thought back to his experiences. By cross-referencing his current cultivation experiences and the common cultivation knowledge he had gained from the Mythology Forum, he had some speculations. Maybe, the reason was simply because his talent was immensely high in the Sun Wukong mythology pathway. For this body he was in, his background was ordinary and had no cultivation resources. His cultivation methods were those most common ungraded genetic breathing methods, yet even in such inferior conditions, he still managed to awaken the monkey gene and stonebirth gene. From this, one could see that his talent on the path of monkeys was truly extraordinary. He wasn't a trash thought of by many. It was just that he was walking on an unusual path of no precedence. This point was similar to Zhu Tiangang, who had awakened the genes necessary for the Pigsy mythology path. He had an unrivaled talent for this path, and his progress would be extremely natural as though gene locks didn't exist for him. If Zhu Tiangang was destined to soar forth with great momentum on the path of becoming a pig, why should he have any complaint seeing that he was on the path of the monkey? Although this was a good thing, Fenglin felt an indescribable emotion. Crying.jpg. Tossing aside these distractions, Fenglin returned to the main topic. Cultivation stated that one must defy the heavens, but one must find a natural advantage and continue pressing in all the way. If one tried to forcefully acquire something, that would only be a waste of time, and there wouldn't be a good ending. What was the external condition he needed after awakening the spirit gene? There was no way for him to seek the answer from elsewhere. He had to seek the answer from his cultivation. Fenglin instinctively thought of his cultivation method where he absorbed astral energy from the stars. Astral energy was one of the purest energies in the universe. It wasn't extreme at all, and was very neutral with no other impurities. It could temper the heart and minds of people, boosting their mental strength. If he absorbed large amounts of astral energy essence and boosted his mental strength to the peak, he would surely be able to shatter the gene lock, right? In the interstellar era, all cities had immensely large buildings and skyscrapers, blocking the natural light from the sky. Cities weren't a good location to absorb energy. Naturally, to absorb astral energy essence, a place that had a distance furthest from the surface of the earth would be the best. There, nothing would be obstructing him. Although Fenglin had a personal flying shuttle, he still wasn't able to survive in outer space unless the nature of his existence could be evolved to a certain extent that was equivalent to universe creatures. Hence, he could only toss this notion of going to outer space aside. Which place on Earth had a distance furthest away from its surface? A smile appeared on Fenglin's face. He had already thought of an optimal location. He didn't hesitate and left his residence immediately. He then sat on a flying mobile as he sped toward a certain location on Earth. The Earth's circumference was at most slightly more than 40,000 kilometers, and modern transportation could reach anywhere in an hour. Very soon, half an hour passed. The traveling speed was very swift. Soon after, Fenglin saw a majestic snowy mountain that extended up into the sky, just like a sky pillar. The white snow was like a beautiful blanket, covering everything with natural whiteness. This was the Himalayas, Mount Everest. The tallest mountain on Earth, the third pole of the world. In the ancient Earth era, this was once a forbidden place for humans, as many would die upon attempting to climb its peak. But in the interstellar era, this place was a holy ground for the interstellar cultivators. Chapter 176, Spirit Force Torrents. In the interstellar era, cultivation was the main focus of humanity. But not everyone would have the talent and ability to be qualified enough to enter the peak interstellar universities and receive a proper education pertaining to cultivation. Many were reluctant to give up on their cultivation dream and could only depend on themselves to continue striving on, preserving. With no genetic cultivation art, with no genetic potions, with no genetic martial arts, they had completely no resources and had to depend on themselves. They had to contend against others for it or even seize it. These people were all known as unaffiliated interstellar cultivators. In truth, in the most backward region in the interstellar space, only a minority of the people could enter interstellar universities. And among them, the vast majority were all interstellar cultivators. Earth, as the mother planet of humanity, naturally had the most suitable environment for humans to stay. Although it wasn't the largest planet in the solar system, the population here was the highest, resulting in the highest number of unaffiliated cultivators. Cultivation was extremely profound, and one couldn't simply cultivate alone. They needed all sorts of external conditions to stimulate them. Everyone was either in the depths of the water, using the pressure to temper their bodies, or they were soaking themselves in lava to refine their bones. There were all sorts of methods. And also, as the third pole of the world, the Himalayas was like a land of death to ancient humans, but this environment was nothing to cultivators. In fact, It was a holy ground as there existed all sorts of unique environmental conditions, which allowed humans to train their physical and mental attributes. This was why so many unaffiliated cultivators would love to come here and train. Feng Lin exited his flying vehicle and saw streams of humans moving up and down the Himalayas. At the foot of the mountain, a small town could be seen as bustling noises rang out. Top-grade snowy mountain cave, rental is only 1,000 star coins per day. Conditions, extremely comfortable, it will even increase your cultivation speed. Snow-capped ice spring, 5,000 star coins per usage for one people. You can use the frosty temperature to temper yourself, strengthening your body. Luxurious apartment at the peak of the Himalayas. Enjoy the beautiful scenery, refresh your mind and spirit. Numerous shouts rang out, like tour guides from tourist centers. Feng Lin ignored them all. He knew that for the agents of some companies, they would monopolize certain supreme locations in the Himalayas and earn star coins from the unaffiliated cultivators. Since it was cultivation, one naturally had to train their heart and mind. What was the point of enjoying life during cultivation? Was there even any meaning to it? For those ancient cultivators, their companions were the mountains and rivers as they used the land for their bed and sky for their blanket. They didn't even know when their next meal would be, yet they were content with life. Although they didn't have transcendent abilities, their lifestyles could be considered a form of cultivation of the mind as well. If these unaffiliated cultivators wanted to enjoy life, why would they come to the third pole of the earth? Even if they awakened the mythological gene, their mindsets would render them nothing more than false cultivators. The heart was the Tao, strength was the law. These two couldn't be spoken together as one. Feng Lin didn't halt his steps, and he continued on his way up. Young man, hold it. You came here to cultivate, right? I've got a top-grade cultivation room with an ice bath and cold springs, even a meditation cave and high-pressured wind valley was equipped. Do you want to give it a try? An agent rushed over, his eyes shone when he noticed Feng Lin. Swish. A gentle breeze of wind gusted. Feng Lin didn't stop. He increased his speed and transformed into afterimages, causing a burst of wind as he sped up. In the blink of an eye, he vanished into the crowd. The tip of his foot lightly tapped the ground as he maintained his speed despite the incline. Wind and snow intersected. The bitter chilly winds hushed forth, feeling as sharp as blades. The air was gradually growing thin, causing some to feel that it was hard to breathe. Such an environment was naturally a forbidden land where most ancient humans would find it tough to get near. However, Feng Lin didn't seem bothered. One must know that for the extreme limits of a cultivator's evolution, there would be an existence with vast longevity that could endure all sorts of harsh environments. This current environment was nothing but the tip of an iceberg. Feng Lin continued on his way and was at a height of 6,000 meters above sea levels. Casting his gaze toward the horizon, a chain of snowy mountains that extended outward could be seen. Such a scene caused him to be awed and feel a sense of submission to Mother Nature. On his way here, he could see many artificial buildings in the surroundings. Those people staying inside were all interstellar cultivators. Ordinary humans would surely not come here to suffer for no reason. Feng Lin still wasn't satisfied with this altitude. If he could reach an altitude where there were no layers of cloud obstructing him, the more abundant would the astral energy be. He continued ascending at rapid speed. His footprints were soon covered up by the falling snow, leaving no traces behind at all. The cold wind whistled. Even for Feng Lin, he could feel the bone-biting chill, but this was still not sufficient to affect his movements. Ever since the ancient Earth era, Mount Everest of the Himalayas had been continuously growing taller. After 10,000 years, its height now had already surpassed 10,000 meters. Even for someone with Feng Lin's speed, he still needed over an hour before he reached the peak. Standing alone on a lonely peak, he felt a sense of loneliness as though he was the only one in this world. His vision took in the wondrous sight nature had presented, calming his state of heart. It was like his state of heart had undergone a formless baptism. Just when he ascended the peak, dusk arrived. The cluster of stars shone brightly, cascading their silvery radiance down unimpeded since the layers of clouds were not present at this altitude. The boundless starlight cascaded down onto Feng Lin, causing him to feel a sense of coolness. A crescent moon hung suspended in the air, illuminating the sky. Silence was everywhere. The noises made by humans earlier had all subsided. Feng Lin calmed his heart, tossing aside all thoughts of distraction. The pores on his body all opened and his entire body was like a black hole that was absorbing the astral energy from the stars unceasingly. The clusters of stars lost their color. It was like this painting of a starscape was swallowed whole by a terrifying interstellar monster. The skies were no longer beautiful as there seemed to be an empty hole there now. In a radius of 1,000 meters, the astral energy provided by the clusters of stars all turned into silvery lines of energy that were drawn over. This became a phenomenon that could be seen by the naked eye, beautiful to the extreme. The astral energy was absorbed through his pores into his body and circulated all around, nourishing every part of his body. There seemed to be a cooling breeze gusting through his heart and mind. Feng Lin felt a refreshing sensation as his spirit seemed to glow brighter. He also felt a floating sensation. It was like his spirit had just consumed extremely nutritious substances and were now like floods of water gushing around as they strengthened with every wave. His state of heart was completely liberated as he basked in the astral light. It felt like he was floating in space, carefree and relaxed, as he sensed the energy of heaven and earth. It was unlike how his perception could have merely sensed external things before. His current mental energy was powered by spirit force and had already turned into a corporeal energy type that could affect the multitude of things. Rumble. A thunderous boom rang out. Spirit energy churned wildly in the air, as violent as a hurricane. The formless energy swept out as the wild winds increased in ferocity. A layer of snow on the ground was swept up into a snowstorm that produced terrifying whistling noises. Feng Lin sat there unmoving, and the snowstorm swirled above his head, becoming a phenomenon observable by the naked eye. The snowstorm then separated, becoming clusters of snow clouds that floated above his head and not falling even after a long time. As the person producing the force, Feng Lin didn't even notice this. He was now immersed inside a special state where heaven and man were as one. It felt like he had fused with the universe. His spirit was expanded boundlessly in scope, and every star in the sky felt like an extremely distant yet majestic life. Even his heartbeat matched the frequency of Mother Earth's pulse. His spirit force formed torrents, sweeping outward with wild abandon. Everything it swept by was turned topsy-turvy. Chapter 177, Avalanche in the Himalayas. His reservoir of spirit force grew vaster and turned corporeal. It was like gusts of wild wind permeating the region, affecting everything in the area. The snow and wind churned wildly, forming a revolving storm that emitted a whistling sound that was extremely terrifying. When the strengthening tally of a gene was maxed out, this meant that your talent in this area had already reached the peak, but it wouldn't necessarily maximize your abilities. The law of energy conservation was the most basic law in the universe, and it couldn't be shaken. Even if one wanted to unleash their spirit force to the limit, how much energy could one body store? Thus, Feng Lin had to constantly absorb the energy to strengthen his body before it was possible. As he continued to absorb astral energy, his spirit force would constantly strengthen as well. It acted like a lever that could even lift the earth, generating a natural storm. Mental energy, psi-force, spirituality. Feng Lin felt that the energy from his three basic genes was like an inflating balloon that continuously expanded. The astral energy in the surroundings was completely absorbed as a black hole appeared. A stretch of darkness covered Mount Everest's peak, and a snowstorm also manifested, churning violently. The area around Feng Lin had completely transformed into a black hole that was devouring everything. It was impossible for people to ignore such a shocking sight. Human silhouettes appeared from all directions as they pointed up and mumbled among themselves, feeling extremely shocked in their hearts. What is this? Did something happen at the peak of Mount Everest? I don't know. Earlier, there seemed to be someone cultivating there. Could this be caused by him? If that's the case, what immense power is that? Is it a phenomenon caused by his cultivation? What genes did he awaken exactly? What genetic martial arts was he practicing? The crowd was confused and there were all sorts of speculations going on. Staring at the devastating scene on the peak of the mountain, they felt a sense of apocalypse approaching. It was like a giant interstellar monster opening its huge maw wanting to devour this entire place. Chaos erupted. As the person who started this, Feng Lin actually didn't notice all these smaller details. He was in a state of complete focus and could sense that the reservoir of genetic energy in his body grew vaster and vaster. He concentrated on fusing the three basic genes, transforming them into a flood of power augmented by astral energy as they gushed toward the spirit gene. Rumble. The entire space was shaking. This rush of power slammed into the gene lock, which was like sturdy iron walls. Boom. It seemed to be effective. Feng Lin felt joy in his heart. Absorbing astral energy was indeed an essential condition to stimulate the spirit gene. His spirit seemed to be in a special state where he was one with the heavens as his genetic energy rapidly strengthened. Upon seeing the possibility of shattering the gene lock, Feng Lin didn't hesitate and did his best. His pores were like tiny little mouths that continuously absorbed the astral energy. The starlight formed silvery lines of radiance that constantly flowed toward Feng Lin. After entering his body, they were transformed into incomparably pure, cooling, and refreshing energy that could strengthen his spirit. If before this, Feng Lin's genetic energy could only be described as a river, now, it was like 100 rivers gathered together, becoming a huge sea. It surged forth with unstoppable momentum and power. No matter how tough the gene lock was, it could not withstand the surging waves of power produced by this sea of energy. Finally, the walls were broken down as Feng Lin's genetic energy rushed into the dark star frenziedly, infusing it with boundless strength and finally awakening it completely. Boom, boom, boom. A pulse like that of a heartbeat could be heard as the dark star finally lit up with silver radiance. From being a reclusive gene, it finally awakened and gradually grew as bright as the sun, lighting up the entire starry space. Spirit gene, awakened. A mysterious aura gushed forth. Gene, spirit gene. Grade, high-grade primeval gene. Strengthening tally, 1. Ability, allowing one's spirit to leave the body, comprehending all mysteries, controlling over the formless spirit force. In the center of Feng Lin's brow, a thin slit appeared like the third eye of gods in the legend, a divine eye. At the next instant, his third eye opened, wanting to see through the illusions of the mortal world. Boundless golden energy gushed forth from within. The originally formless spirit energy became corporeal, undergoing a complete transformation. It would spread out like the wind and permeate the surroundings. Occasionally, it would also become as sharp as swords, capable of piercing through everything. Feng Lin slowly opened his two eyes. A hint of golden light flickered within as two beams shot out, towering up into the sky. Under his control, the spirit force caused the nearby objects in his surroundings to move about, rising in the air before falling back. A vortex of energy was formed as the snowstorm swirled violently. The vortex grew larger and larger with increasing momentum, as though it wanted to envelop the entire Mount Everest. What is that golden light? Could there be an unusual treasure being birthed by the world, and it was obtained by that man? Quickly, let's go and take a look. His spirit force transformed into a golden beam of light that shot up into the sky. This phenomenon instantly caused those at the Himalayas to be unable to remain calm. Unceasingly, countless figures started to rush over here from all directions. All these unaffiliated cultivators were all extremely audacious. In order to contend for cultivation resources, they would do anything. They all thought that an unusual treasure must have appeared. This was why a phenomenon appeared. The greed in their hearts was naturally all revealed. Is this the spirit gene? Feng Lin didn't bother with the reactions of others. He observed his immense spirit force and discovered that it was indeed formed from the fusion of mental energy, psi force, and spirituality together. Add point. He decisively added one free primeval genetic point to the strengthening tally, causing the spirit gene to rise from 1 to 2. All this happened silently, but his spirit force expanded by twofold and was surging forth like floodwaters, permeating his surroundings. Feng Lin stood at Mount Everest's peak, and his spirit force swept across the heavens and earth as he basked in the feel of nature. Boom! The peak of the mountains nearby had accumulated snow for tens of thousands of years. The total weight of it was most probably millions and millions of tons. Once there was a disturbance of any sort, a butterfly effect would happen, leading to an instant collapse. Hence, one had to be wary of even shouting out loud in the midst of such a place. There was no need to doubt that when Feng Lin's spirit force swept out, the fragile balance was instantly broken. The layers of snow started to collapse. At the start, only a little rumbling could be felt. As time passed, the layers of snow collapsed together, forming a large-scale avalanche. It was like a sea of snow generating shocking waves to destroy everything, wanting to swallow up this world. Nothing could block it. Feng Lin stood at the peak of Mount Everest, not affected by this at all. But for those cultivators who were rushing here, they were in for it. Although they were already interstellar cultivators, what were they before the heavenly might of a natural disaster? They were all instantly crushed flat if they didn't manage to dodge in time. Quickly run! A giant avalanche has happened in the Himalayas. These people fled in all directions, wanting nothing more than to grow another pair of legs so they could increase their speed. For some people, they didn't want to give up and still wanted to approach. These people were instantly covered by the layers of snow from the avalanche. Feng Lin had a look of astonishment as he stared down at the scenes below him. He then realized that it must be his spirit gene's awakening which had created fluctuations that were the cause of all of this. His spirit force swept out, and according to his control, a tangible cloud of mist formed below his feet, propping him up in the air. Quickly look, that person is floating. At the foot of the mountain, exclamations of surprise rang out. But before they could see Feng Lin clearly, swish! The cloud he was riding on increased in speed, flying into the distance and quickly vanishing from the visions of other cultivators. This was Cloud Soar. Chapter 178, Riding on a Flying Cloud. High up in the air, a colored cloud was rapidly speeding into the distance, arcing through the sky. It felt like the stories in the legend where one somersault could allow Sun Wukong to travel 108,000 miles in the blink of an eye. Cloud Soar. Feng Lin stood on the cloud, looking at the scenery beneath him and feeling the vastness of the world. Now, he felt extremely carefree, like he could travel anywhere he wanted. This was an extremely marvelous experience, soaring on clouds and flying through the air. Humans walked on the ground, fish swam in the sea, birds flew in the sky. There were all sorts of unique abilities as well as their restrictions. Fish could never exist on land, humans couldn't fly in the sky using their natural means, and birds couldn't breathe in the water. There was an order regulating everything. These were the laws of nature. Now, Feng Lin was using his spirit force to execute this ability, allowing him to fly. Somehow, he had already broken the limitations of natural laws, and his base nature had evolved to some degree of transcendence. With just one more step, he would break through the greater limit of humans' lifespan of 100 years and become a true transcendent life form. Feng Lin basked in the joy of flying through the air, and his gaze peered into the horizon. There were clouds, tall mountains, and flowing water. His vision took in all there was in the world while he marveled at the majesticness of nature. From ancient times until now, being able to fly through the air freely was the greatest dream of humanity. The sky was so vast, and so was the universe. The imaginations of humans were boundless. Since then, after losing the transcendent abilities of the ancients, humans didn't stop seeking another way. They focused on science and technology, and eventually created airplanes, flying shuttles, and other creations that could allow them to fly through the sky. But flying through the sky with one's own abilities? This was the toughest obstacle ordinary humans faced. But now, Feng Lin managed to do it. His spirit force allowed him to use the cloud soar ability. Was this the base nature of riding on flying clouds? After Feng Lin's spirit force gushed out, he instinctively unleashed this cloud soar ability. Now that he thought back to it, he gradually understood the basic nature of how to use his spirit force to control objects to fly. Spirit force was an extremely pure and formless energy that could affect and control a multitude of things. After awakening the spirit gene, Feng Lin instantly added a point to it, causing the strengthening tally to shoot up to 2. His spirit force was naturally strengthened, and right now, he could control objects up to a ton in weight and things as tiny as a cloud particle. He could even cause his spirit force to take corporeal form as he levitated in the air. Now, he could feel that he was riding on a cloud. It felt like stepping on the softest cotton, and there was even an elasticity to it. There was basically no way he would fall. Was this the legendary cloud soar abilities those deities and gods used? Maybe their methods would be more brilliant, but the base nature of this ability should be the same. A look of contemplation appeared on Feng Lin's face. Once, during the ancient era, there was a saying that humans could never lift themselves up by their hands. Not inverted handstand, it refers to lifting themselves up as they wrap their hands around their waist. But in this era of mythological genes, this saying was no longer accurate. Materialistic energy could complement and interact with each other, but there was a limit. Spirit force was completely different. It had no restrictions and could manifest formlessly and attain material effect despite it being an immaterial force. For example, spirit force could manifest formless hands from spirit energy and lift people into the air. The floating cloud he was riding on felt like a flying carpet. He rapidly flew in the direction of Huaxia City, leaving behind a trail of white mist resembling jet-propelled aircraft. Feng Lin had a look of joy on his face as he familiarized himself with this new ability. As the spirit gene continuously strengthened, the scope of his spirit force would naturally be broader. Now, he could only control a floating cloud, but in the future, he might even be able to control those microscopic particles in the air, allowing him to fly even more freely. At that time, he would no longer need to depend on cloud soar. But this step was still very far for him, and he could temporarily forget about this first. Feng Lin rapidly sped ahead, but all of a sudden, he felt mental fatigue as the layer of clouds beneath him started to dissipate. Not good, my spirit force is running out. Feng Lin was silently shocked. It seemed like this cloud soar ability couldn't be used casually as the consumption rate of spirit force was too high. just flying a while already caused him to be unable to endure. He quickly controlled the cloud to descend, slowly approaching the ground as he sighed in his heart. Right now, his strength was still too weak. Although he could use cloud soar, he wasn't able to sustain it for very long. It seemed like if he really wanted to achieve his objective of being able to fly freely, that objective was still extremely far away. After acknowledging this truth, Feng Lin didn't feel too dispirited. One wouldn't become a fatty just after eating one mouthful of food. After all, he had already seen his future path. Next, he only needed to walk step by step stably down this path to reach his desired destination. Feng Lin peered at his stats. Name, Feng Lin. Vitality, 92.8. Primeval genes, Stone Monkey Gene X10, Spirit Gene X2. Basic genes, Monkey Gene X10, Stone Birth Gene X10, Adrenaline Gene X1, Mental Gene X9, Psychokinesis Gene X6, Spirituality Gene X8. Genetic Potential, 268%. After awakening and strengthening his spirit gene, Feng Lin discovered that his vitality stats didn't increase too much. After breaking through the 90-point mark, the growth in his vitality stat had clearly slowed down. After all, the development of spirit gene was known for strengthening the mind. It wouldn't really increase stats of other aspects. Also, given that a vitality stat of 100 was the absolute limit for interstellar cultivators, even nearing that limit was extremely difficult, let alone to break through it. Even if Feng Lin continued to strengthen his spirit gene, his vitality stats probably wouldn't increase much unless Feng Lin managed to break through his bottleneck in one fell swoop and ascend into an elite cultivator. Cultivation was a very long path, and each step was filled with difficulty. Feng Lin discovered that this was increasingly true. After he landed on the ground, he started to experiment with the abilities of his newly awakened gene. His spirit force formlessly transformed into a gentle breeze of wind that brushed past the mountains and rivers, probing everything in the area. The range of his mental probe was greatly enhanced. He could perceive everything in a radius of about 2 kilometers around him. Every single blade of grass could be clearly felt by him, even the ants on the ground or the mosquitoes in the air. Nothing could hide from his probe. The spirit gene was a fusion of 3 basic genes. Thus, each aspect of the basic gene was greatly strengthened. It was only that for now, although he still wasn't sure what changes did the abilities of the spirituality gene go through. Spirit force was simply too wondrous, it had boundless potential. As Feng Lin grew increasingly proficient in controlling it, when he used this in the future, his opponents would find it tough to anticipate his plans and deal with him. Also, Feng Lin was most satisfied with the fact that he now possessed a stronger long-range attack. This complemented and made up for the weakness of the Stone Monkey gene, which only granted him proficiency in close combat. In the future, he would have no more weaknesses. For this point, it was extremely important to Feng Lin, who wanted to participate in the interstellar college examinations. The geniuses in the entire universe would be gathered together. From this, one could imagine how intense the competition would be. For those with weaknesses, they would surely be the loser. After establishing the Mythological Genes Association and awakening his spirit gene, Spring Festival was almost over. Tomorrow was the day when school started again. Therefore, Feng Lin sat on the flying vehicle and flew rapidly in the direction of Huaxia City. A hint of carefreeness could be seen in his eyes. It was like he could see scenes of the future. He would surely rush forward with great momentum. Life would be incomparably fascinating. Tomorrow is a new day, it would also be a new beginning. Chapter 179, System Breakdown. The holidays had just passed and it was time for the beginning of yet another school semester. Feng Lin walked into the school. This was the first day of school, and it was very lively. After the winter holiday, all of the students had very excited expressions on their faces. The college examinations were nearing, and there was a nervous and suppressing atmosphere in the air. The first day of the last semester in the senior year of high school was also the annual selection for the gifted class. Only by clearing the Marshall Pagoda's 30 levels would one be able to enter the gifted class, receiving focused attention from the school to nurture them and going ahead with the final dash before the college examinations. Although Earth High School was a well-known school in Earth's Washia City, it hadn't been able to develop. It could only be considered third-rate amongst the high schools on the planet. There were limited cultivating resources, and they could only nurture students selectively. People with a vitality of over 2 points would be considered geniuses. This was something that would be seen as unbelievable in the Feng clan. Although the Feng clan was a small clan in the whole interstellar space, they were a rich and powerful clan on Earth. Furthermore, they had the interstellar ancestral clan as their backing and had no lack of martial techniques and resources. There were many interstellar cultivators with vitality points that were over 10, and the competition was very intense. Fenglin didn't care too much about this gifted class. However, since he was going to participate in the college examinations, he would need to receive the school's full support. Therefore, he wouldn't mind getting into the gifted class. Interstellar universities were also differentiated by grades, and the university in each grade would also have different registration procedures and limited vacancies. The interstellar era was also an era of great competition. People had to compete over everything and didn't keep a low profile. If you didn't display abilities that far surpassed that of the people from the same generation or age, why would the school give you their precious quota of college examinations? Fenglin didn't stop and headed straight in the direction of the illusory Marshall Pagoda. He suddenly frowned. A group surrounded him rapidly, and a sinister-looking Caucasian youth crossed his arms at his chest and threw him a cold glance. Jiao Kai followed behind this young man and was also wearing a smirk on his face. Fenglin, you can forget about escaping today. I'll make sure to take revenge for the previous time. Boom! A series of waves surged out like flooding water. Plot hadn't finished his threats when he was already flying out like a sandbag. Fenglin lowered his eyelids, not throwing him a glance. It was as if he had just slapped and killed a bunch of irritating flies. He didn't stop moving and left. Plot and Jiao Kai laid on the ground, their eyes wide open and listless. They were shivering all over. The two pitiful kids had been given a great shock. They had not even seen Fenglin's frontal view and only felt a wave of immense mental energy sweeping toward them. It instantly broke down their consciousness, and their brains almost turned into paste. Withstanding the mental impact from earlier, they were like mortals looking at God's prestigious pressure right in the face. They felt the horror of death. What era was this? It had been over 10,000 years since web novels were created in ancient Earth. Yet, they were still using such old-fashioned tricks? Didn't they know that it was already outdated? Fenglin had no intention to spend time talking gibberish with this group of people. He sent his spirit force sweeping out, instantly breaking down the minds of these schoolbullies and giving them a great scare. He left rapidly in great strides. A group of people laid on the ground behind him as if they were fowls waiting to be slaughtered. They kept on convulsing, attracting shocked and puzzled gazes. Fenglin moved very quickly and soon arrived at the illusory Marshall Pagoda. A long queue had already formed outside, with many people wearing anticipated expressions. After devoting a lot of hard work during the winter break, quite a number of people felt that their vitality had improved by a lot. They felt that they would have a chance of clearing the illusory Marshall Pagoda and get into the gifted class. When they entered, they were all filled with exultation. But when they came out, they were all dejected and despondent. Fenglin stood in the queue, feeling bored as he watched everything with a cold gaze and understood the situation. Having a vitality of over 3.0 didn't mean that one would definitely be able to clear the martial pagoda. The illusory martial arts masters were all top-notch existences amongst people of the same level as them. They had strong battle prowess. These students only had vitality, but didn't have much experience in battles. Therefore, their battle prowesses weren't strong, and even if their vitalities were above that of the illusory martial arts masters, it would be very hard for them to have any advantages. It was the same for Feng Lin previously as well. He entered the martial pagoda with a vitality of 1.5 points, but he went through great difficulty in clearing the first 10 levels. It was because he wasn't trained in martial arts and had no killing techniques. It was only after he acquired many ancient martial techniques as well as the genetic martial art, Vajra subduing Devil Fist, that he managed to turn the tables around and cleared his way to the 20th level before he was stopped there. To the current Feng Lin, the situation had changed drastically. For the others, this illusory martial pagoda might be as hard to cross as a heavenly chasm. However, for Feng Lin, it couldn't even be considered as a stumbling block. Without realizing it, his battle prowess had already far surpassed others of the same age as him. Only those most outstanding geniuses in top-notch high schools would be able to give him some pressure. Earth High School's cultivation standards were too low, giving him the feeling of children playing houses. It didn't perk his interest at all. He had experienced far too much from his journey to Mars. The experience that far surpassed that of his age had also brought him capabilities that far surpassed others from the same generation as him. On Earth, or even within the solar system, it was already very hard for him to encounter an opponent amongst people of the same age as him. After dominating over the clan's ranking competition, Feng Lin understood this point very clearly. His opponents were at that vast and boundless universe. Star regions with advanced technological developments, sufficient spiritual substances, ample cultivating resources, and intense competitions tended to be the ones that could produce unrivaled geniuses that were beyond one's imagination. Only these people were his future rivals. Feng Lin had never restricted himself within the solar system, but had looked toward the boundless interstellar space. As the queue continued to move forward, it was finally Feng Lin's turn. He wore a calm expression and walked straight in. However, he had just entered when the illusory martial pagoda's alarm suddenly rang out. The sound was piercing and red light kept on flashing. The principal led the group of head teachers and walked over with a grim countenance. What happened? What did you guys do? The illusory martial pagoda was the school's most precious asset and nothing must go wrong to it. The principal was very furious to see that such a great mishap had happened on the first day of the school semester. I don't know either, said the students queuing outside the illusory martial pagoda innocently. At that moment, the illusory martial pagoda's system released an alarm throughout the entire school. Warning! Warning! Someone's vitality had exceeded the system's limits, and the system has broken down. People clearing the trials inside should evacuate quickly. Evacuate quickly. Evacuate quickly. The alarm rang over and over again, in an urgent tone. What? Vitality exceeding the system's limits, causing a system breakdown? Who's that? The principal and the head teachers were taken by astonishment. They hadn't expected such a thing to happen. The Earth High School had specially purchased illusory martial pagoda from an interstellar empire. Although it was of the lowest level, it could withstand a vitality within 10 points. However, someone had now caused the system to break down. This was too unbelievable. Who was it that had such a horrifying vitality? An interstellar cultivator? Earth High School had never produced a genius like this. Who could it be? Such an amazing character didn't exist in Earth High School. The school's leaders couldn't understand this. At that moment, Feng Lin walked out with an indifferent look. The principal's eyes lit up, and he quickly headed up to ask, "Feng Lin, what did you see inside? Why did the illusory martial pagoda go through a system breakdown?" Feng Lin slowly spoke up, "Nothing. I merely cleared 30 levels in the illusory martial pagoda within a minute, and the system broke down and chased me out." His countenance was very calm and his tone indifferent. It was as if he had just said something insignificant that had nothing to do with him. Although those illusory martial arts masters were said to be unrivaled amongst people of the same level as them, a vast difference in vitality like that between heaven and earth wasn't something that could be compensated through any means. A person with great strength could win against 10 people who knew martial arts. After Feng Lin entered, he didn't need to make a move. He merely sent his spirit force sweeping out to form a surging tempest, and the illusory martial arts masters would be instantly defeated. Regardless of what extraterrestrial races they were, what kind of martial arts masters they were, or how great their means were, they wouldn't be able to fend off a gushing mass of power that was like floodwaters. All of them were crushed. "What? You were the one who did this?" The principal and the other leaders in the school couldn't believe this and suspected that Feng Lin was boasting. They remembered that when Feng Lin attempted to clear the illusory martial pagoda's trials previously, his vitality had yet to exceed 2.0. However, to think that he was able to cause the illusory martial pagoda's system to collapse. The before and after difference was too huge. He had already become an interstellar cultivator within 2 months. Faced with many suspicions, Feng Lin couldn't be bothered to explain himself. He merely said calmly, "You guys can just take a look at the system's records to see if what I said is the truth." Seeing that Feng Lin didn't seem to be lying, the principal and the others pulled out the records from the illusory martial pagoda's system and looked through them. Feng Lin's figure appeared in the projection. Feng Lin had an unstoppable attitude, defeating the many illusory martial arts masters, and continued to head upward without stopping. He cleared trials after trials until even the martial pagoda's system blew out. The countenances of the principal and the other leaders in the school appeared to be at a loss as they came to a faint realization. Before Feng Lin, an unrivaled genius who had suddenly rose up, the gifted class had already lost its meaning. Chapter 180, Registering for College Examinations. From today onward, everyone will be a part of the gifted class. Let's all get along. A man with a burly build and fierce looks stood at the platform and announced loudly. He had an obvious blade scar on his face and gave off a valiant aura. He didn't look like a teacher, but instead, more like a strong warrior who was experienced in battles. Feng Lin's eyes gleamed. He realized that the gifted class head teacher was actually an elite cultivator. In the massive Earth High School, he was ranked number 2 after the principal. It seemed that the school held the gifted class in high regard to actually send an elite cultivator to be their head teacher. Feng Lin secretly nodded. When he was observing others, others were also observing him. The capable-looking head teacher's eyes gleamed as he kept on assessing Feng Lin with curiosity and judgment in his gaze. All this while, the number 1 genius in Earth High School had been Duan Yunlu, who had a vitality of close to 10. He was only 1 step away from becoming an interstellar cultivator. However, Duan Yunlu was nothing when compared to Feng Lin. This young man emerged strongly, clearing the illusory martial pagoda within a minute. It was an astonishing feat, and his achievement had caused the gifted class to lose its purpose. Before this young man, who could be referred to as a genius? Feng Lin had already steadily progressed and become an interstellar cultivator. Although his vitality level was unclear, it definitely far exceeded 10 points. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to cause the illusory martial pagoda's system to break down. Earth High School had been in decline for a very long time. Therefore, The principal was very excited at the sudden appearance of this unparalleled genius and had instructed the head teacher over and over again to carefully nurture Fenglin. They would go all out to let him achieve the greatest results in the interstellar college examinations. It wasn't just the valiant head teacher. Right now, the gazes of the entire class were gathered onto Fenglin. This was with the exception of two people, Zhao Kai and Jess Clot. After spending the winter break cultivating, the two of them had also successfully entered the gifted class. When they had challenged Fenglin earlier, that horror of facing death right in the face had caused them to be scared out of their wits. They didn't wish to go through it the second time. Their gaze when looking at Fenglin was that of horror. They didn't dare to look at him too much. However, there was a gaze that was filled with battle intent that was cast toward Fenglin. This was a handsome black-haired young man. He wore arrogance on his face, seemingly unconvinced. He was Duan Yunlu, the person who had always been the undeniable #1 genius in the school with a vitality of 9.6. He had cleared the illusory martial pagoda back in the second year of high school. Accustomed to being the top person, but yet being stepped under the feet of someone who had barged out of nowhere, how could he possibly be able to accept this? His thoughts of wanting to challenge Fenglin were written all over his face. Contrary to their expectation, Fenglin's gaze was cold. He didn't pay any heed to the faint hostility coming from these people. People who incurred no jealousy are mediocre. Whether other people love me or hate me, these are all fleeting moments. The only thing that Fenglin was concerned about was to register for the interstellar college examinations. Although such examination style that was like a carp jumping over the dragon gate still existed, with a strong emphasis on vitality, after experiencing 10,000 years of technology development, it had long spread across interstellar space. Therefore, it was impossible for there to be no changes at all in the way it was conducted. Interstellar universities were just a generic term, and they were differentiated by grades. From the lowest grade to the highest, they were the planet universities, star region universities, interstellar empire universities, and the last one was the cosmos universities. The registration method would be different for the universities of different grades. Out of them, the registration for the planet universities and star region universities could be completed in their own school. As long as their final examination results met the required level, they would be admitted. Things were different for the interstellar empire universities and cosmos universities. They were considered to be the true elite universities amongst the interstellar humans. Students were required to register at the designated locations and pass through many tiers of examinations. Furthermore, the registration quota for every school was also limited. Fenglin's classmates in the gifted class all looked at him with envious gazes. There was a limited quota, and they were afraid that Fenglin would snatch their chances to get into interstellar empire universities. As for the cosmos universities, it was something that no one would consider. It was the top-notch university that took in students from across the entire interstellar space. It was said that they even recruited some outstanding extraterrestrial races that harbored no hostilities toward humans. Fenglin's classmates knew well that they were merely cultivators in the most retrogressive area in the interstellar space. They could be seen as geniuses in Earth High School, but they were not worth anything in the solar system, let alone if they were in the interstellar space. Therefore, none of them had thought of applying for the cosmos universities. Fenglin's eyes were cold as he took in everyone's hostilities. Dragons didn't stay with snakes. How could these people know of his lofty aspirations? These hostilities toward him were a joke. It was like the rats on the ground harboring hostility toward the majestic eagles that flew in the sky for taking over their territory. The gifted class was the elite class in Earth High School. The reason the school would focus all of its resources to nurture them was so that they could get into good schools. Through that, they would gain fame for Earth High School, raising its reputation. There were only 10 or more vacancies for the interstellar empire universities. There were many interested parties, and the competition was very intense. There was no such thing as attending classes in the gifted class. It was just the head teacher, who was an interstellar cultivator, providing guidance to the students and trying to rapidly raise their cultivation level before the college examinations. As long as their vitality and wisdom increased, and they had a clear understanding of theories and knowledge, they would soon be able to grasp things. There was no need for intentional guidance. They could just study independently. Applications start from today. On the first day of school, the valiant head teacher made an announcement in a deep voice. He wanted to get the college examinations enthusiast and then provide them with relevant training to prepare them for their aspired schools. As the genius with the most dominating performance in the illusory martial pagoda, he first asked Feng Lin, you'll go first. Tell me what interstellar university's grade you're going to apply for. I'll write it down for the record. Feng Lin had no hesitation and said, Cosmos University. The moment he spoke up, silence filled the room. The other students in the class all heaved a sigh of relief. They managed to get one more open slot. At the next moment, their eyes were wide open. What? He is going to apply for a Cosmos University? Where did he get his confidence from? Putting aside the fact if Feng Lin had such capabilities, they mournfully realized that although they viewed him as their rivals, he did not care about them at all. You want to apply for a Cosmos University? The valiant head teacher couldn't believe what he had just heard. That's right. Feng Lin said calmly. Cosmos Universities takes in students from across the universe, even extraterrestrial races. Everyone is treated equally, so no matter how retrogressive a star region is, no matter how weak a school is, there'll be at least one vacancy. Don't our school has one too? I'm going to be taking that. Although his tone was calm, it was also dominating. When the responsibility came, one should just step up and not decline. If I don't do it, then who will? The valiant head teacher nodded. He knew that Feng Lin was right. However, he quickly shook his head. It was true that Earth High School had one application quota for Cosmos Universities. However, as there hadn't been anyone applying for Cosmos Universities over the years, they would usually sell that quota to other high-grade high schools to earn a tremendous amount of star coins. If Feng Lin wished to take this quota, then the school would indirectly lose out on a large amount of star coins. Would the principal agree to this? He realized that even though he was the head teacher, he had no say in this matter at all. Wait a minute. I'll get the principal to come and talk to you. The valiant head teacher threw a glance at Feng Lin and left hurriedly. A commotion broke out in the gifted class. Feng Lin waited quietly, feeling very calm. The principal arrived very quickly. When he saw Feng Lin, he immediately asked in a deep voice, Do you want to apply for Cosmos Universities? It was the same question, but with deeper questioning tone. Since this was a matter that concerned himself, Feng Lin didn't show any impatience. He affirmed, That's right. The principal appeared troubled. If they were to sell this quota to other schools, they would be able to get at least 10 million star coins. This amount of money was very important to Earth High School, which lacked cultivating resources to begin with. It was an important source of income. How are you so sure that you'll be able to get in? This quota is very important to the school. If you don't have confidence, it'll be a waste of the school's resources. Do you understand this? The principal didn't give his reply straight away, but asked Feng Lin instead. Feng Lin didn't explain himself. Actions speak louder than words. Why did he have to waste his efforts on talking? With a tremble, he released the restraints on his body and unleashed all of his vitality pressure. Even space became distorted. The pressure seemed as if it was material, pressing down like Mount Tai and giving everyone the feeling as if a great calamity was coming. There was dead silence.